Have you ever stopped to think about how far a person can go when they're carried away by blind passion? Today, we're going to tell you a story that will make you question everything you know about loyalty, betrayal, and justice. It's one of those stories that seems like fiction, but actually happened, and will leave you speechless until the very last second. Get ready, because what you're about to hear will stir your emotions in ways you never imagined. Mariana and Roberto were the kind of couple everyone envied. Married for 15 years, they had built a life together that seemed perfect to outsiders. Roberto was a hardworking man, the kind who woke up early every day to ensure his family never went without. He worked as a civil engineer for a large construction company, and his salary allowed Mariana to stay home and care for their two children, 12-year-old Lucas and 9-year-old Sophia. Their routine was simple, but full of love. At least, that's what everyone thought. Roberto was always a dedicated man. When he got home from work, even tired, he always found time to play with the children, help with the housework, and even made a point of taking Mariana out to dinner at least once a month. He was the kind of husband many women dream of having, one who genuinely cared about every detail of family life. Mariana, for her part, seemed content with her life. She had a comfortable home, healthy children, and a husband who loved her unconditionally. But something was about to change that in a brutal and unexpected way. It all started when Roberto suffered a workplace accident. It was a typical Tuesday afternoon when he was inspecting a construction project. A poorly structured scaffolding gave way, and Roberto fell from a height of nearly 6 meters. The impact was devastating. He was rushed to the hospital with multiple spinal fractures. The doctors did their best, but the diagnosis came as a cruel sentence. Roberto would be paralyzed. His movement from the waist down was permanently impaired. The news fell like a bombshell on the family. The children cried in despair, and Mariana, at least at that moment, seemed completely devastated. The first few months after the accident were extremely difficult. Roberto underwent several surgeries and long periods of physical therapy. He had to learn to live in a wheelchair and deal with the frustration of no longer being able to do simple things that had previously been automatic. The house needed to be adapted with ramps and grab bars. Roberto received compensation from the construction company for negligence, which at least ensured that the family would not face immediate financial hardship. But money couldn't buy back the mobility he had lost or the dignity he felt was being stolen from him every day. Mariana initially seemed to be by her husband's side. She accompanied him to doctor's appointments, helped with daily care, and offered words of comfort when Roberto was feeling down. But something began to change, silently and cruelly. The woman who swore to be by her husband's side in sickness and in health began showing signs of impatience. Conversations became shorter, glances colder, and the affection that had previously been abundant began to become rare. Roberto noticed the change, but tried to convince himself that it was just the stress of the situation, that in time, everything would return to normal. Poor man, he had no idea what was coming. It was then that Mariana met Diego. He was a personal trainer at a gym near her home, one of those guys who turns heads wherever he goes. Tall, muscular, with a seductive smile and that smooth talk that makes anyone feel special. Mariana had started going to the gym, saying she needed to take care of her mental and physical health to better cope with the situation at home. At first, it seemed like a sensible decision. But what she didn't anticipate was that Diego had a knack for spotting vulnerable women, and Mariana was in that exact state. The conversations at the gym started out innocently, just a personal trainer being attentive to his student. But soon Diego began to compliment Mariana in a way she hadn't heard in a long time. He told her she was beautiful, that she had an incredible body for a woman with 2 children, that she deserved to be more appreciated. Each word was like a balm for Mariana's wounded self-esteem, as she felt increasingly overwhelmed and emotionally neglected at home. Diego knew exactly what to say and when to say it. He was a skilled manipulator, the kind who makes a true art of seduction. Conversations at the gym quickly turned into text messages. At first, they were just conversations about workouts and diets, but soon they expanded to include more personal topics. Mariana began to vent about her life, how trapped she felt, how difficult it was to care for a husband who could no longer do the things he once did. Diego listened attentively, always making Mariana feel understood and welcomed. He would say things like, "You deserve to be happy. You can't sacrifice your entire life for a situation that wasn't your fault." Poisonous words disguised as support, which gradually undermined any sense of responsibility and love Mariana still had for Roberto. And then the inevitable happened. One night, after a particularly intense workout, Diego invited Mariana to a nearby cafe for a juice. She accepted without a second thought. The conversation flowed, the laughter came easily, and for the first time in months, Mariana felt light, desired, alive. As Diego walked her to the car, he held her hand and said, looking deep into her eyes, "I can't stop thinking about you." Mariana felt her heart race. She knew it was wrong, that she had a husband at home, but in that moment, she simply didn't care. They kissed right there in the parking lot, and from that day on, the affair became a constant in Mariana's life. Mariana and Diego's meetings became increasingly frequent. She began making excuses to leave the house. She said she needed to go shopping, had doctor's appointments, or was going to visit a friend. Roberto, confined to his wheelchair and dependent on his wife for so many things, had no way of questioning or verifying the truth of these excuses. He trusted Mariana completely, even with that nagging feeling in his chest that told him something wasn't right. The children also noticed that their mother was different, more distant, more irritable when she was home, but they were too young to understand what was really going on. Diego, for his part, wasn't just a personal trainer. He had a history of relationships with married women, always promising a better life, always making the same empty promises. He knew exactly how to exploit people's emotional fragility and used it to his advantage. With Mariana, it was no different. He began to plant in her head the idea that she should leave Roberto, that she deserved to start her life over with someone who could give her everything she needed. "You're young, beautiful, you have your whole life ahead of you. You can't waste it caring for someone who can no longer make you happy," he said. And Mariana began to believe those words as if they were absolute truths. Things came to a head on a night that would change everything forever. Roberto was in the living room watching television when Mariana arrived home late, with disheveled hair and a strange scent on her body. Roberto asked where she had been, and for once, Mariana didn't have the patience to come up with an elaborate excuse. She simply said, "I was with someone who makes me happy, Roberto. Something you can't do anymore." The words tumbled from her mouth like sharp blades, cutting deep into the heart of a man already shattered by life. Roberto was shocked. He couldn't believe what he was hearing. He tried to argue, tried to ask for explanations, tried to make Mariana understand that they could get through this together. But Mariana had already made her decision. She said she couldn't bear to live that life anymore, that she hadn't married to be anyone's nurse, that she deserved to be happy. Roberto, with tears in his eyes, begged her not to abandon him, not just for his sake, but for the children's. But Mariana was adamant. She had convinced herself that she was doing the right thing, that she had the right to pursue her own happiness, even if it meant destroying other people's lives in the process. 2 days later, Mariana packed her bags and left home. She left Roberto alone with the children, never looking back. Lucas and Sofia cried desperately, clinging to their mother, begging her not to leave. But Mariana simply said they would understand, when they were older, that she had to do this for herself. Roberto had to hold his children, as he watched the woman he had loved for 15 years simply turn her back on her family and go live with her lover. The pain he felt in that moment was greater than any physical pain the accident had caused. Mariana moved into Diego's apartment, a modest place compared to her previous home, but one that represented freedom for her. In the early days, everything seemed perfect. Diego was attentive and romantic. They made love every day, went out to parties and bars. Mariana felt alive again, felt desired. She tried not to think about Roberto and the children, blocking those thoughts whenever they came to mind. She had made her choice, and she wanted to believe she had made the right one. But reality has a cruel way of inflicting itself, and it wasn't long before things began to change. Diego began to act differently as the novelty of the relationship wore off. He began demanding that Mariana contribute financially to expenses, something he'd never mentioned before. He began going out alone at night, saying he needed to meet friends or had work commitments. Tender conversations became rarer, and Diego became irritated when Mariana tried to talk about her feelings or the children she'd left behind. One day, Mariana accidentally discovered that Diego was seeing another woman. She took his phone while he was in the shower and saw the compromising messages with a woman named Fernanda. The messages were exactly the same as the ones Diego used to send Mariana when they first started dating. The same compliments, the same promises, the same words of seduction. Mariana felt the ground disappear from under her feet. She confronted Diego as soon as he left the bathroom, and he didn't deny it. He simply said with frightening coldness, "Did you really think you were special? You abandoned your paraplegic husband for me. If you could do that to him, why should I trust you?" Those words were like a punch to Mariana's stomach. She finally saw the situation for what it truly was. Diego had never loved her. He simply saw in her another vulnerable woman he could manipulate and use for his own pleasure. Mariana realized too late that she had destroyed her family, abandoned a man who had always loved and cared for her, driven away her own children, all for a man who was absolutely worthless. Reality hit her like a ton of bricks, and for the first time, she felt the true weight of her choices. Desperate, Mariana tried to return home. She called Roberto, crying, begging for forgiveness, saying she had made a terrible mistake and wanted to return to her family. But Roberto, who had spent months grieving and having to explain to his children why their mother had left, simply said, "You made your choice, Mariana. Now I've made mine too," and he hung up the phone. Mariana tried to insist, texting, showing up at the door, but Roberto had changed the locks and filed a restraining order for her to stay away. He was rebuilding his life with the children, and there was no longer room for Mariana in that family. The children, who initially cried over their mother's absence, over time began to understand what she had. Don Lucas, the oldest, told his father that he no longer wanted to see his mother, that he couldn't forgive her for abandoning him just when he needed her most. Sophia, though she still missed her mother, agreed with her brother. They had seen their father suffer. They had seen him fight every day to remain a good father, despite all his limitations, and they knew who truly deserved their love and respect. Meanwhile, Mariana's life fell apart completely. Diego kicked her out of the apartment a few weeks later, saying she was being too dramatic and that he didn't have the patience to deal with her problems. Mariana found herself alone, without a husband, without children, without a home, without anyone. She had to move back in with her mother, an elderly woman who didn't mince words when expressing how disappointed she was in her daughter. Mariana lost the respect of her entire family and friends. People who once greeted her on the street now looked away when they saw her pass. Became the woman who abandoned her paraplegic husband, and that mark would follow her forever. But karma wasn't done with Mariana yet. A few months after Diego kicked her out, she began experiencing severe body aches. Initially, she ignored the symptoms, thinking it was just stress, but the pains grew worse. She finally saw a doctor and discovered she had a serious autoimmune disease, a condition that would require prolonged treatment and severely limit her mobility and quality of life. The irony of the situation wasn't lost on anyone. The woman who had abandoned her husband because he could no longer walk normally now faced her own physical limitations. But with no one by her side to care for her, Mariana tried once again to contact her children, especially when she received the diagnosis and realized she needed support. But Lucas and Sofia, now teenagers, were clear that she had made her choice years ago and now needed to deal with the consequences alone. Roberto, when he learned of Mariana's situation, felt neither pleasure nor satisfaction. He only felt a deep sadness for everything that had happened, for everything that could have been different. But he also made no move to help her. She was no longer his responsibility. Roberto, on the other hand, found a new perspective on life. He continued his physical therapy and, although still using a wheelchair, he regained some movement and was able to adapt very well to his new reality. He returned to work, this time as a remote consultant for the same company where he had suffered the accident. The children grew up seeing their father as a true hero, a man who was unfazed by adversity and who always put his family first. Roberto even met someone new, a woman named Paula, who worked as a nurse and fell in love not only with the man he was, but also with the plus strength and determination he demonstrated every day. Paula became a wonderful mother figure to Lucas and Sofia, and together they formed a true family, based on respect, love, and loyalty. Mariana, meanwhile, continued to live a lonely life full of regrets. She tried to start over a few times, but her reputation preceded her. None of the relationships she tried to build after Diego worked out because she herself had become bitter and resentful. She spent her days looking at old photos from when she was still married to Roberto, from when the children were young and the family was happy. She finally understood that she had had everything a person could want, but she threw it all away for an illusion, for a fleeting passion that was worthless. Mariana's story is a brutal reminder of how our choices have consequences and how karma has a way of putting things in their proper place. She had everything and lost it all because she didn't know how to appreciate what she had. She abandoned a man who loved her unconditionally at the moment he needed her most, and the universe simply repaid her in kind. While Roberto rebuilt his life and found happiness again, Mariana was trapped in a cycle of regret and loneliness from which she could never escape. This story makes us reflect on the true meaning of commitment, loyalty, and love. True love isn't the kind that exists only in the good times, when everything is perfect and easy. True love is the kind that endures through difficult times, through life's storms, when everything seems to be falling apart. Roberto demonstrated this kind of love when he cared for his family, even after losing his mobility, even after being abandoned by the person he trusted most. Mariana, on the other hand, proved that not everyone is ready to truly love, and that some people only realize the value of what they have when it's too late. And you, who are watching this now, who are listening to this story, what do you think about all this? Can you imagine being in Roberto's position, being abandoned just when you needed support the most? Or perhaps you've seen similar situations happen to people close. To you, what this story teaches us is that life has a fair, if sometimes cruel, way of balancing things out. What you sow is exactly what you reap. And Mariana reaped exactly what she sowed when she decided to abandon her family for a man who never truly cared about her. If you enjoyed this impactful story and want to continue following more moving, dramatic accounts that stir your deepest emotions, be sure to subscribe to the channel, activate the notification bell, and leave a like below. Share this video with your friends and family because stories like this need to be told so people understand the importance of valuing those who truly deserve it. And don't forget to comment below with your thoughts on this story. Do you think Mariana deserved what happened to her? Would you have forgiven if you were in Roberto's shoes? Let us know. We want to hear your opinion. And if you believe in the power of true love, the one that weathers all storms, stay with us because we always bring you stories that will touch your heart and make you reflect on life, relationships, and what truly matters. Thank you for watching thus far. If you enjoyed this intense story and want to see more moving and thought-provoking content, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Activate the bell so you don't miss anything, and leave a like. Your support is crucial for us to continue bringing you true and impactful stories. See you in the next video.